Time for a little history lesson. Cable TV, believe it or not, people think now it's been around forever, but not the case. Late 1970s, early 1980s is when cable TV first came to this area. And there were some people in some of the area cities that went outstate to investigate what is this cable TV thing? How does it affect cities? And so they came back with information about that, and there were two main elements. Number one, rights of way. So that's obviously the big play with cities and cable TV is all those cables that you see run under the ground or over the air in the rights of ways that the cities own. And so there had to be some discussion about how does a cable company work with the city to be able to use that space, and the answer was franchise fees. So I'll explain a little bit more about how that fits into the puzzle. So what happened in the early 1980s is that this area put together a joint powers agreement. So they, very smart people back in the early days, thought it would make much more sense to go into this with cable TV as a group rather than city by city. And it's different across the state, different across the nation as far as how this is done. In some cases it is city by city. For example, the city of Coon Rapids is one city on its own with a cable franchise. But this group decided those 9 cities would work together to put together and provide a larger group that could hopefully, in the end, provide more things to the community. And I think that has happened. The goal behind it is they thought, and not only having cable TV and providing that to the customers was important, but in the end they thought having something that can give communication possibilities to the residents and also to the cities and the local government would be very important. They thought a more informed public was a better public, and I think that has proven to be the case over the years, and that has been one of our main goals. Freedom of speech was always one of the key points as cable TV came and local programming came to have public access. So if you wanted to make a program, you could come in and make a program that could be aired on one of the channels. So in 1982, the Northwest Suburbs Cable Access Commission was formed, and Dr. Orn was a part of that, right, back in 1982. So one of the founders of the whole organization is right here. And our first studio, believe it or not, does anyone know where the first studio was for the system? You're close to it. Remember the Northbrook Shopping Center? 1982, December, the first studio, first cable TV use by the public was here in Brooklyn Center. Now obviously that's long gone. The studio lasted there about 3 years. And then there was some consolidation that happened. But at one time there were studios in Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, Maple Grove, Plymouth, and New Hope. So there were 5 opportunities for people to come use public access equipment. That changed over the years as equipment became a little more expensive and people wanted better quality equipment. We condensed those number of studios down to what we have now in Brooklyn Park so we could provide the best quality equipment to the bigger number of people rather than lower quality equipment out into the suburban areas. The funding, again, back to those franchise fees, because people always ask me, well, who pays you? How do you get funded? It is through those franchise fees. So the cable company each month sends a check that goes through the cities and then comes back to our organization, the Joint Powers Agreement, and that is how we have capital and also pay the staff. And so thanks to the cities in this area, they felt it was so important that those franchise fees come directly back to us so we can provide community information to the residents of the area. In some cities that's not the case. In some cities it's handled very differently, so we're very grateful to the cities of this area that feel this is so important. Let's take a look back, and if people remember back, this cable system has changed names a few times. You might recognize a few names on the screen up there. It started as Storer Cable back in the 1980s, and the name of it was actually Northern Cablevision. But then, as you see, it went through many changes throughout the years, and that's something that we have become familiar with throughout our time with the cable company. Like anything, the next big guy gobbles it up, then the next guy gobbles it up, and it was soon to have been gobbled up by someone other than Comcast, and it was going to change, but that never came through. I believe they're still discussing some things, but the Time Warner Comcast deal did not happen, so it is Comcast at this point. Talk a little bit about what we do, and there's three main different areas of our organization. People obviously often think of us just as local programming or as public access, but there's actually three. So on the far left to you is our Channel 12, which is called our local origination channel. So this is where we hire staff, much like a medium-sized affiliate station, to perform the functions of news reporting, public affairs programming, sports programming. So we have staff that will be on set as our news programmer out in our trucks doing things in your communities. The second area is public access. That's the opportunity for people to come in and make their own programs. I'll explain a little bit more about that. One area that people don't often attach us with it is all of your city meetings. And so we work with the cities very closely to crew and to maintain the equipment for all of the city meetings that happen in this area. And also adding billboards, whatever information needs to go out to the public. So that is all done by our staff as well. A little history lesson for you. Let's walk back here a little bit. I told you a few of these things, and we'll have a couple dates just to get you in the early days. I won't go all the way up to today, but here's a look back at some of the history. So 1982, public access government education programming was started. You might have heard the term PEG programming before. That's what it is called, public education and government programming. So there were opportunities for people to produce programming in the community, and also cities started to get involved. In 1984 then, staff programming started, which we called local origination program, or staff would put together ideas for programs. And a lot of that was city programming, school programming, and your community events. That was a big start. If anyone was on sports teams back in the mid-1980s, that's when we first rolled our trucks out and started to capture Brooklyn Center Centaurs game or Park Center Pirates or the different sporting events. So it was quite some time ago. In 1985, we became Northwest Community Television. Back to that page of all of the different cable systems. On one of the sales, the person that came in to purchase it said, you know, I really don't want to have to deal with the local programming part of it anymore. Because actually when I was hired and others were hired, we were part of the cable company. So we were cable company employees. But at that sale in '85, the new owner said, I'll give you some money, you guys go ahead and take care of it yourself. And that's when Northwest Community Television, our nonprofit corporation, was started that handles all of the local programming, and we do it till today. 1986, because we were at the Comcast building, they said, out of the building, so we said, okay, we'll build a building, and we built it right across the street from Comcast, mainly because we knew we had to be connected cable-wise to their building in many ways, and so why not be across the street? So that's where we have been for years and years. If you know where the old Knox Lumber was, or where the Goodwill store is now, directly behind it is where our building is located. So that's the early history. People think the news has been around forever, but not the case. It was in 1989 that we started news programming. And believe it or not, there were quite a few discussions about, do we do news programming or not? And the feeling was, again, by the people involved in it, it is important to get the news information out. Even though down the road we're owned and operated and managed by the cities, they felt, hey, if there's a good story about our city, get it out there. If there's a bad story about our city, report it fairly and get out there. We think people need to know. So the news programming started, and again, that was back in 1989. It has taken a lot of advances as time has gone on. A little more local programming history, and let's now go up to the 1990s. 1994, we moved to Channel 12. So before that, we were on Channel 14, we were on Channel 37, we hopped all around. We do not have much of a say of which channel we're on. It is up to the cable company to decide where we are, and I'll say a little bit more about that as we get to the end of the presentation. 1996, some of our favorite programming started back then, our Sports Jam program. High school sports has always been a key to our success, and so we started a magazine program that has now been going for about 20 years. Community Corner was a program we added to profile businesses, very successful, and I know a lot of you I've talked to related to your businesses. That has morphed into other avenues as we moved along, but that started back in the mid-90s. As well as ad sales. We did, for quite some time, have advertising people, and we sold advertising on Channel 12. Unheard of in the world of local programming. Normally, people aren't buying ads, but we had a great following. We did a lot of branding early, and people said, you know, I keep hearing people, when you do a story about me, say, I saw you on Channel 12. I always watch Channel 12. And the businesses started to come to us and say, can we buy ads? And we thought, okay, this is a great novel idea. We can maybe do that. Comcast obviously sold ads, so our first thought was, would Comcast sell ads on our channel? They weren't quite ready for this. They needed their model with Nielsen ratings and all of that, so they said, no thank you, we won't work with you on that. We said, okay, we can take that on. So that was one of the hats that I gradually worked into as well, was working with the ad sales, and worked very well for a number of years, finally to the point where Comcast came back and said, you know, you have a lot of ad sales and we'd like a piece of that. And so Comcast said, we'll take it over, and we made an arrangement with them. So now Comcast does sell advertising on Channel 12, but again, throughout the country, unheard of, so something that we're very proud of. Building additions, the original building in '86 quickly filled up, and so we made a few additions in '96 and '98 to the building, adding more storage and then adding an actual new 2-studio facility for public access. So for people in this area that want to make their own program, they have some great opportunities. And then 1999, believe it or not, we think websites have been around forever, but they weren't. Back in the late 90s, we were working to start up a website, and it has become very, very successful for us. So that's a quick tour. I mentioned our national reach as far as what we do. Let's see if it can move ahead a slide here. And we have had many guests come to our building. So NATO is a national organization that deals with local television programming. And so they had a large group of people when their convention was in the Twin Cities area that came to our facility to understand a little bit more about how are we set up. How did the cities do this back in the 80s, and how has it become so successful? So you see some of the people that visited our studio. Here in a second, let's talk a little bit about the programming, and we'll break down those 3 different areas for a second. So staff programming, which you now see on Channel 12, mostly involves news, sports events, and city public affairs programming. So we have a staff of about 30 full-time people that work with us at the building to work on this type of programming on a regular basis. And the programming has become nationally known. We've been recognized with a number of awards. I'll show you those in just a second. First area we want to talk about is the newscast. So you might recognize Alexandra and Mike, who are on our set. The set has seen many different revisions over the years. One of the key things that we do, again, that tied to the city, is work with the local elections. And so this is from Local Vote 2015. Other part of news, obviously, there's so many great things happening in this community. That's the fun part for me and for our staff, is to go out and look for stories of great things happening. Won some awards. Again, our news programming competes against the CCOs, the Carol Levins, others in the area for Emmys and other awards, and we have been lucky enough to win some of the awards, have outstanding photographer staff and also reporting staff. So that's a little bit about our news. Let's move ahead to sports a little bit. We have the Sports Jam program. If you remember that history line, it was back in '96 that we started this. High school sports in this area is fantastic, and we always seem to have teams in the state tournament and doing very, very well. So in the beginning days, we would take our little truck out, a van that you couldn't stand up and you had to kind of squat like this to get in it, produce sporting events, go down to the Minneapolis auditorium, other facilities to tape the Pirates in playoff games, the Clefsis boys here at Brooklyn Center High School, if you remember back to that far. When we get to the game end of it, we have a production truck, much like, again, a local affiliate station or a sports production house would send out a truck to do games, 5 cameras at the game, announcers, replays. So a very devoted staff that works with the local sports, and we do have some full-time people that work with it, but we have a lot of freelance people that might work the Timberwolves or the Minnesota Twins or the Vikings, and then on Friday nights or Thursday, Tuesday nights when the local games are, they come to us and help us on our productions. So a fantastic crew. Public affairs, we work a lot with the cities in the area to try to get other information out. So if it's not news and it's not sports, don't worry, we still have ways to cover it. Community Corner talks a lot about the cities, so it's a 6.5-minute program that we air always after Channel 12 News, and actually this is where we work very closely with the cities. So the cities, for part of it, actually pick the topic. So Brooklyn Center could say, we'd like you to interview Jim and talk about the swimming pool. And we say, you bet, we love to talk about the swimming pool. So we contact the city, We set up a time, we come over, find out what are the latest things happening at the facility, and put together a minute-and-a-half piece about that. Interview the mayors on a regular basis. This is now where the business features live. This is also where we do speaker series, so that's why Scotty is here today, because we thought, well, we might as well tape it. And I was telling some earlier, it always seems like you talk about your business all the time, but you never really record or have a document of your history. So we thought, let's do a little bit of that today. So that's some of the programming you see on our community corner and through our public affairs. Then city information. Again, I mentioned we do a lot with the cities. This is behind the scenes that people don't know, that we have control rooms in all of your city halls that have equipment and facilities to be able to get your meetings recorded, more importantly now, out live as well. Also bulletin board information and other special content. When cities ask for other things, we certainly help out. Transparency is the key word to this, and again, the cities obviously have taught us this and talked about this over the years. We want local government, and they want local government to be transparent. So if you as a resident want to see a meeting, you can go see a meeting. If you want to know what's happening with a particular program in the city, this is transparent. This is ways we can do that. So we have many, many ways to do that. And again, that was one of the things we started with first. You see, we started with those meetings back in 1982. So your meetings have been on for a long, long time. This is Brooklyn Center Council Chambers. I'll sneak up here, so if you see this little guy here hidden by the flag, that is one of our cameras, so make sure you smile next time you're in the council chambers. So there are cameras at all of the city council chambers. They've evolved over the years. They used to have tripods like Scotty has there and camera operators next to them. Now they're all remote control systems, so we may have 1 or 2 people in the control room at the city hall that's operating that system to be able to get those meetings out. Control rooms, various types. I believe this might be the city of Maple Grove's control rooms. So it's not big and elaborate. It's enough equipment to be able to get the job done to put those meetings out. But as technology and demand has increased, it's not just putting it on the city channel 16 anymore. It's webcasting it. It's getting it set up so it can be watched on demand at a later date. So if you saw something in the council agenda that you thought, I should look what happened on the day after the meeting, you can go to it on demand and you can go, I want agenda item 6, click on 6, and it plays right away. So you don't have to watch through the whole meeting as well. But I know the meetings are wonderful. You would want to watch the whole meeting. And so the way that is done is through what we call our Granicus system or webcast. So this is an example in the city of Osseo that you can go to their agenda. I could click on a specific item and it pops up in the player right there. So I could immediately watch that short little bit about that one council item that I wanted to see. So just another way that we've evolved, and again, something that people don't often associate with us, but that's a big part of what we do is support the cities with their local content. Last area I'll talk about in a quick video review here is our public access. So this is where all of you can be TV stars. If you'd like to come in and produce your own programming, we have people that come in and produce programs about their hobbies or their passions or about the nonprofit organization that they're with. There are some rules that you have to follow, and that's covered in free training that we offer, and it's all free. So you don't have to bring your checkbook or credit card in. You can come in and it is free if you live in this area to use the equipment and then have your program replayed on one of our channels. What comes to mind when you think of most common programming to be on public access? Any idea? Animals? Probably a few animal programs over the year, but not too many. Cooking has become fantastic. Cooking has really caught on here, and you saw some of the clips there, and some of the promotional work we do is related to cooking. So if people want to do, here's my favorite recipe from my grandma, you can certainly come in and do that. Did you have an idea over here? They're just goofing around. You guys want to be on, right? Churches. A lot of churches. Music, exactly. Music has been fantastic over the years. Polka. Anybody like polka music? The polka show that you see on our channel and also see on the regional channel 6 is produced out of our public access studio. And some old movies, Scotty right here behind us, through Trailer Trash and some of the programs. He'll dig in the archives of old, 1950 shows that might have been on and that you might have seen in school when you were growing up, and he'll put those into a package. So the sky's the limit. And one of the neat things that has happened as the community has become more diverse, guess where they come to talk to their people? Our studio. So they come in and say, you know, I would like to produce a program about Africa. And I come to the studio and do it. We have a lot of Somalis that come to the studio and use it. Hmong come to the studio, so it's fantastic. You walk in and sit there for an afternoon and you will see someone from about everywhere. So it's really worked out well, and the mission has been accomplished with public access. People can come in and put their programming on it. It doesn't have to be something that everyone in the world wants to watch. If you have a small group that you want to target your programming to, by all means come in and produce that program. A couple last things where we've gone here in the 2000s. The website I mentioned started in 1999. The thing that we have to think about now is it's not just a channel anymore. So when we think of making video productions, it's how can we get that content out? And quite frankly, the channel is this part of the puzzle. The website is this part. YouTube is this part. Social media is another part. So we've really had to expand our thinking, and we don't think of our shows a lot of times now as programs, but we think of it as content, and what's the best way to get that content out to people. And so we have some avenues to do that here. Obviously our website is one. A lot of social media, so YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and then that little red envelope on the side is what we call our Gov delivery system. So a lot of people obviously still use email on a regular basis for their work, so we have a system, and a lot of cities have it. They call it e-subscribe, or systems where if I am a resident of Brooklyn Center, I could sign up and say, you know, I want to know when stories are on about the city of Brooklyn Center, or when my local teams are on. And through our Gov delivery system, people can do that. And so what it looks like, we will send out, this is one of our week in review, and you see this is the city of Plymouth. So we look at stories that have been done in that particular city that last week, and we send it out to you as you sign up for it. It's free. If you like sports, if you say, I want every story you do about football, then we're going to send that to you. So again, it's thinking beyond the channel. We want to make sure if you're interested in content, we have a way to get that content to you the easiest way possible. So that's the way we've done that, is through our Gov delivery system. And the future, I think they've got a burning graphic here, HD. And believe it or not, we've been talking about this for years, and it just happened on November 3rd that we now have an HD channel. So we've been channel 12 for years and years, but now we're 12 and channel 18. So if you want to see our local sports programming, any of the others in full HD, you can do that. We're still in the process. It's very difficult and takes a lot of money, so we've been investing for years and years to get to this point. But the local sports and some of our community program are all HD at this point, and our news programming and some of the others will be shortly along. So also public access, channel 19. So we put the two together. 18 and 19 are both HD. So now local producers have that capability too. The little cameras that they check out from us, HD capable, they edit in HD, and on the channel it comes to you HD. So if you've that huge screen at home that's set up for HD, now it won't be fuzzy anymore. You'll see it crystal clear, and that's something that we've been working towards for a number of years. So I'll stop there. That's kind of a walk through what we do and where we've been and where we are today.